สัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะพุทธังธัมมังสังฆังนะมัสสามิ One of Ajahn Chah's most well-known teachings, refers to the glass, and he said the glass is already broken. Just keep telling yourself, glass is already broken. You remind yourself continually, the glass is already broken. Even if it's still a glass and you can use it as a glass, when you know that a glass is already broken, then you can use the glass wisely and without attachment. I used to tell the story of Sangaraja went on a trip to China. Was given beautiful tea set, and he was informed that it was a very expensive, very precious tea set, and on his return to Bangkok he felt quite a lot of tension around this teapot, tea set, always afraid that the teapot might break. He had upataks and monks and novices looking after him. He's constantly aware of this kind of underlying fear, tension that the teapot would be broken, it would be dropped by a clumsy novice or a clumsy monk. And then finally, one day, it actually happened. And the teapot was dropped, this very precious, beautiful, antique teapot fell to the ground, smashed. And Sangaraja said, "Oh, thank goodness for that. And now I can get that off my mind." Just the accumulation of pressure and worry about the teapot not breaking outweighed the pleasure of using it. The way of reflecting that Ajahn Chah taught us was that the teapot's already broken, and so the ideal of the samana is one who is dead before he's dead, he's dead to the world, dead to the passions of the world, but he's not a dried up old stick, but his death to the things of the world is an awakening to the things of the spirit. There can only be a new life where there is a willingness to go through a death of old things, and every religion has stories and myths and symbols to represent this truth. There has to be a sloughing away of the old skin. There must be a willingness to put down the old and the worn. And there's a parable or story told by the Buddha of the two friends walking along and finding various materials by the side of the road, and then the one man who puts down at each time that they come to something along the side of the road which is worth more than what they're carrying, then they put down what they're carrying and pick up the new thing which is of more value. Whereas the second person, he's not sure, and the first time he comes across something which is more valuable, he's not sure. Maybe it's a trick. Maybe it's not a sure thing. So he keeps his original load. Now, having rejected the first alternative, he finds it psychologically more difficult to abandon his first load for the second more valuable item, because it would be an admission that he made a mistake just now, and or perhaps he has some other reason. But the longer he keeps with his original load, the more difficult it is to put it down. And and we see, don't we, that so often we have particular habits, particular loads that we carry around, and although one part of us feels the heaviness and feels the pain, and there is something more valuable available to us, and yet somehow we fear that moment when we've put down the old and not yet taken up the new, when we've died to the familiar and yet not yet integrated the unfamiliar, and not really sure what it's going to be like. Perhaps we, in English we say, better the devil you know. There's this feeling that bad as this is, I know just how bad it is, and I know how to cope with it. And somehow that's seems a better alternative than taking up something which may well be better, less painful, or not painful at all, but which you can't control, or you don't know the full extent of it. You don't know what it'll do to your feeling of who you are. And the illusion, the picture of ourselves that we carry around, and the ideas of ourselves that we have, and the whole kind of complex of mental states which we sometimes refer to as ego or whatever. The most characteristic feature of this whole constellation is a sense of familiarity. That's our refuge in the familiar. That bad as it is, it's familiar. We know it. It's been around long enough. And this is in the story of Beowulf. You remember this retelling of the Beowulf story, a very old Anglo-Saxon myth of the monster who kills all the Anglo-Saxon villagers, and until finally a great hero comes forth, Beowulf, who slays the dragon, slays Grendel, the awful creature. There's an excellent retelling of this story years ago, in which the author, American author, rewrote the story from the point of view of the creature. And in this retelling of the Beowulf myth, he comes over as a kind of bodhisattva who sees these gross, crude human beings doing nothing except drinking and partying and fighting and eating and having sex and leading a totally sort of crude, gross kind of life. And he realizes the only thing that's going to civilize them is fear of death. So he starts in a very compassionate kind of way, creeping in and eating a few of them, instilling this kind of fear, and the recognition that the glass is already broken, that life's not something that you can take for granted, and it's a very interesting take on this whole myth. So we're trying to keep reminding ourselves of these truths, and our life is not, it's not a whodunit story or a cheap novel that you read once and throw away. And there's teachings, things that you have to read and reflect on again and again and again and again and again, and let them gradually sink in, and reminding ourselves that we don't know. We know about, we know about the Four Noble Truths, and we know about the three characteristics. We probably know quite a lot about them, but if we can't yet let go of greed and hatred and illusion, we don't actually know what those terms mean. And this is a humbling reflection, but a useful one, to remember that what are the Four Noble Truths, what are the Eightfold Paths, what are the Seven Bojjhangas, and I know all that. We know about them, we know their names, but have we actually penetrated them, and do we really know? And it's when we realize that we don't really know, that there's a way ahead. And Buddha says the fool who knows that he's a fool is wise in at least that. At least I think we probably, the fact that we're choosing to spend our lives in this way is we've transcended the state of the fool. But this recognition of how much more there is that needs to be done, and not assuming that we have known things that we've really learnt about. And learning about things is extremely important, and not something to be denigrated, but also not to be given too much importance. So the real test of whether you know something is whether you can let go of it. The test of whether something is really yours is if you can give it away. The test of your practice and your understanding of Dhamma is your willingness to let go, and your willingness to die every day, to die from the old and the tired and that which is just going round and round and round and round, and to break through into what is new. And a number of similes in the suttas of chicks in eggs. The Buddha's asked, what's the difference between the Buddha and the Arahants? And he says it's like there are a lot of eggs, and he's the first chick to break out. He's not raising himself up. His enlightenment as anything in any way, in qualitative way, is different from the Arahants, except that he was the first. He's the elder brother. But of those various similes of chicks and hatching out that appear, it's good, I think, to just reflect on. Have you ever imagined what you'd be like as a chick, conscious and encased in an egg, and there's warmth coming from outside, but it's not like being a human being and just sort of pushed out. You have to do the work yourself. You're not inside the mother anymore, and there must be fear, mustn't there? Well, that's all you've ever known. What's outside the shell? It's frightening. But if you're going to live, you have to, sooner or later, you just have to push your claws out through the eggshell. You find the eggshell, which is your whole world, and seems such a... Probably for chicks, they probably think that shell is about a foot thick, and then actually push the claws through it. I mean, it's nothing more than that. And I feel that shell, we've surrounded ourselves in a shell of ignorance and tanha, which seems so thick, doesn't it? And I think that you push your way through it, and it's just that. I mean, it's like an eggshell. It's that fragile. Once you can arouse that kind of energy, you've got the faith that's willing to say, "I'm just going to go for it," even if I'm afraid. And this is the quality of the truly brave person. You see any the testaments of those who've been in the most awful kind of conditions and in wartime, and there's a definite distinction to be made between the foolhardy person who just kind of goes into a kind of a trance and just loses it, completely reckless, and jumps out of the trench and runs forward and attacks the enemy, and maybe overcomes a great number of enemy soldiers and is successful. That's not really bravery. The really brave people are those who feel fear, are fully awake to fear, but they do what needs to be done anyway. And in a battlefield, those are the true heroes, not someone who can just kind of hypnotize themselves to do something, or shut their minds down and go onto automatic pilot. But it's someone who's fully aware of the consequences of the context of the big picture, and experiences of fear, but is able, even though he or she feels fear, does what needs to be done, and doesn't demand any guarantees because knows that there aren't any. And we don't have any guarantees at all, except that the glass is going to break. It's going to break because it's broken already. It's of that nature. This body is broken already. It is of the nature to break up. There's no question about that. This is a time-bound body, and it's something, and it is by its nature dukkha, both in the sense dukkha in the sense of the three characteristics, and dukkha in the sense of Four Noble Truths. The dukkha in that first sense means that it's inherently unstable. It's unable to maintain itself in any one state for any length of time. The Buddha says that all sankharas are dukkha, and in the three characteristics, that's not anything to do with human suffering. This is a statement about the nature of phenomena. It's more like a philosophical statement. So, for instance, if you have a curry, say an Indian curry, the finished state of an Indian curry, it's hot, it smells nice, it's tasty, and so on. That's the state of an Indian curry. But you only have to leave that. You don't have to do anything to it. Just leave it there, and immediately it degenerates from that condition. For instance, it starts to cool down. So one of the causes and conditions, one of the constituents of that Indian curry is its warmth. The warmth is unsustainable unless it's being stimulated. You've got a flame underneath it. If you've got an external stimulus, you can maintain the heat of it. You take the heat away, and the heat degenerates. If you leave it longer, then the smell starts to go, and perhaps the ingredients, it starts to congeal, or it starts to smell bad, and starts to go off. So this is a profound truth about phenomena. It's both extremely ordinary and obvious, but when you give a thought to it, everything, you don't actually have to do anything to destroy it or to provoke some degeneration. You just leave it. And without that input, the moment you cut off input, the sustaining input, then degeneration sets in. This is the way everything in the universe is, whether a Buddha is born into the world or not. But how it affects you, how it affects your body, how it affects your mind, this is the dukkha in the Four Noble Truths. If you're ignorant, if you have craving and attachment in your mind, the dukkha state of things will create a sense of inner pain and turmoil, which we call dukkha, like human dukkha in the Four Noble Truths. So the dukkha of sankharas in general, this is not something that you can do anything about. Dukkha of physical body, in the sense that the physical body is doomed to degenerate. Its nature is to get old, to get sick, to die. This is the dukkha nature of the physical body. But the dukkha in the Four Noble Truths is not inevitable, because when we know how things are, and we're at peace with the way things are, and we're not trying to shut off or ourselves to the way things are, we're not putting our heads in the sand like ostriches, we're not just trying to distract ourselves with sensual pleasures, then we have a way to eliminate the dukkha in the Four Noble Truths. You see, so many of the things that as monks we renounce, if we were to put them into a single category, we could say we renounce distractions. So whether it's renunciation of careers and money and families and sports and enjoyments, and basically where the aim is to free ourselves, to renounce or to die to all that which is a distraction from the human condition. So we're warriors in the sense that we're willing to be in that battleground and just to be totally there and naked with what it means to be a human being. And this is our basic abiding interest, to penetrate our human nature, what it means. Not willing just to shut down and to distract ourselves from this truth of our lives. And so there has to be that probing interest and inquiry into our existence to sustain this practice. The moment we lose that interest, we lose that inquiring mind, as it were, and then we can stagnate in practice, and we look for a little niche, and we look for a little quiet little place or somewhere where we can rest and be quiet, and to shut down in one way or another. So as a samana, we renounce this option, the easy option of just shutting down and just being carried along with the easy way, with the world. This is not the easy way. This is not the big vehicle, it's the small vehicle. It's not the easy way, it's the hard way. And it's a small vehicle because very few people are willing to devote themselves to practicing this way. It's not because it's not welcoming to all. It welcomes everyone, but there are few people who are willing to take it on and make the kind of sacrifices. But if you're willing to give up the need, the desire, the hope for guarantees, and if you have that kind of faith based on observation of your own life, then you can really make progress. As you practice over a number of years, your samadhi practice and so on may go up and down. But if you look beyond that, you'll see certain things which solidify, become stronger and more firm and clear to you year by year without any doubt. And I would say of these things, the central one is this belief in karma. You notice that in yourself, and you notice how after a while you just get this absolute certainty in a mind that you can't get away with anything. You notice that? You can't get away with a single thing. Every single defiled action, every single defiled word, every single defiled thought, it has a result. You can never get away with it. And at the same time, nothing is lost. Every single good, kind, wholesome action, every single word, every single smile, every single gesture, every single wholesome thought, it has a result. It's not lost. Nothing is ever lost. It means the whole universe in which you live, every single moment of your life has meaning because it has consequence. Everything has a consequence. That's the meaning, and it's this meaningful nature of existence is one in which you can participate and can affect in a skillful and wise way. Notice from yourself, from your own practice, just how qualities of mind, habits, new habits emerge, and you can't quite see exactly how it happened. And mostly then they're good habits, but every now and again you see an old habit. And I'm talking about habits is something unexpected happens, and there is a spontaneous response. Without thinking, you respond in a particular way. That's where you see the results of the karma you've created, in that kind of unthinking, spontaneous response to a situation. You see someone in pain, and immediately there's a desire to help them. Suddenly, at odd times, without reflection, there's just this wish to make others happy. There's this interest in the truth of things, the way things are. Things which you know, if they would have happened 2 years ago, 5 years ago, or whatever, would have filled you with anxiety and foreboding. And now you just realize, without quite knowing how it is, that you just don't see that there. It's just not arising anymore. And you see that nothing's lost. If you act in an indulgent way, you think, well, I try so hard in all these other areas. Could have. It's all right just to be a bit easy in this area, considering how much I do in all these other areas which are difficult for me. You sort of have a kind of a pet kilesa, which you just keep with you, just for old time's sake. Well, you can't get away with it, because over the course of time, and it starts to have adverse effects on your life. The good things that you do, even if you think it's kind of not very much, it's nothing very special. And you don't really even think it's very meaningful at all. but these things blossom, grow in your mind, and you see something after a few years, and you say, where does that come from? It's come from tiny little bricks, tiny little actions, tiny little conscious dying to indulgence, distractions. A strength is born, an integrity, a nobility of mind is built up little by little by little. Very, very few of us, I think, just have these startling kind of blinding insights, and suddenly everything's changed. It wasn't as it used to be. I mean, maybe it happens, but it's not the kind of the model for our spiritual development. It's for I think for a majority of people, it's just if we can, with in our meditation, if we have that kind of humility, humble heart, just to be with one single in-breath. Not thinking about sitting for 3 hours or 5 hours or jhana. This is to be completely present and content and happy and bright and clear and aware with one single breath, and then start again, another single breath. This is karma. This is the development of. This is the abandonment of evil, development of the wholesome, the purification of the mind. Right there, in that pure intention, to be totally with your experience for one in breath and one out breath, and then to adapt it to your life as well, with every single situation, with every whether it's something that brings up feelings of liking or disliking, or whatever the kind of the commentary is, but to have that kind of total respect and total contentment, and being to do this, I think Suzuki Roshi says, to burn yourself up in whatever you do. This is not the burning of the Adita Pariyaya Sutra. It means just giving yourself totally to even the most mundane tasks. If it's washing your bowl, or cleaning your teeth, or sweeping your path, or whatever, just to that capacity to give yourself totally to that. And this is this intention to do that, arising again and again. It creates new channels in the mind. It allows the energy of the mind to flow in channels leading to peace. And there's similes of the Buddha, everything kind of inclining towards the sea, like all the streams flowing to the sea. And so you're trying to develop that now. All the streams of thought and perception leading to the sea of peace, rather than to sort of muddy bog of confusion. So if we find that sort of putting forth effort problematic, then we come down to a very basic unit of effort. Unit of effort is a single breath. Unit of effort is these few minutes, this particular task, this particular job. Very, very humble, one step at a time, and we find we can breathe in that, and we can. And we have the confidence through seeing the results of our actions, the results of our intentions. We're willing to let go, willing to die before the glass breaks, die before the body breaks up, dying moment by moment, all that which constricts and binds us. This is where our heart becomes more and more free, and we can really start to understand the meaning of the Buddha's teaching of liberation. So I'd like to offer these few words to you this evening.